Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Amditis. Let's get to it. It's Wednesday, November 3rd, 2021. Welcome to day 288. The Biden administration announced plans to heavily regulate methane emissions from oil and gas drilling. The proposed EPA rules aim to curb methane emissions coming from roughly 1 million existing oil and gas rigs in the United States. The EPA previously had rules that would prevent methane leaks from oil and gas wells built since 2015, but they were rescinded by the Trump administration. Roughly 75% of the country's methane emissions will be covered by the new EPA rules. Separately, Joe Manchin has been pushing to remove or weaken a provision in Biden's social safety net and climate change package that would impose a fee on emissions of methane. Moving on, the CDC recommended the low-dose Pfizer Covid-19 vaccine for children ages 5 to 11. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky's recommendation came after a unanimous vote by the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices supporting the use of the vaccine for approximately 28 million children in the age group. Biden called the decision a turning point in our battle against COVID-19, adding that the federal government has purchased enough of the low-dose children's vaccine for every child in America. Back in D.C., House and Senate Democrats reached an agreement on lowering prescription drug prices, a key part of Biden's Build Back Better package. The proposed deal would establish a $2,000 out-of-pocket limit for seniors' expenses in Medicare Part D. It would also allow the government the power to regulate the prices of some of the most expensive drugs, like insulin. Kyrsten Sinema, who opposed previous proposals on prescription drug reform, endorsed the new agreement. Meanwhile, House Democrats added 4 weeks of paid family and medical leave back to the social spending bill. Democrats had previously scrapped the family leave provision after failing to reach a compromise with Joe Manchin, who raised objections to using the reconciliation bill to pass significant policy proposals such as paid leave. In response to the announcement, Manchin said he still opposes the paid leave proposal, adding, "They know how I feel about that." And in election news, Republican Glenn Youngkin defeated Democrat Terry McAuliffe in Virginia's gubernatorial election, a state that Biden won by 10 points just 12 months ago. The governor's race in New Jersey, meanwhile, remains too close to call, even though Democratic Governor Phil Murphy had been favored to win re-election by a comfortable margin in a state that Biden won by 16 points. And at least 8 Republicans who attended the January 6th rally in Washington, D.C. that turned into a deadly insurrection were elected to office. 3 were elected to state legislatures, and 5 won at the local level. In Minneapolis, voters rejected a ballot measure to replace the police department a year after the Black Lives Matter movement had elevated the issue of police reform. History, meanwhile, was made in a number of cities, including in Boston, which elected Michelle Wu as mayor, the first woman and person of color to run the city, ending the city's 200-year history of electing white men. New York City elected Democrat Eric Adams, making him the second black mayor of the city. Ed Gainey was elected the first black mayor of Pittsburgh, and Winsome Sears was elected lieutenant governor of Virginia, the highest office a woman of color has ever won in Virginia's history. And finally, Senate Republicans blocked the John Lewis Voting Rights Act from advancing. The legislation would have restored parts of the Voting Rights Act, which was weakened by past Supreme Court rulings, including the power of the federal government to require pre-clearances from the DOJ for jurisdictions that have a history of discrimination before they're allowed to change their voting rules. The final vote was 50 to 49, with Republican Lisa Murkowski voting with Democrats in favor and Chuck Schumer changing his vote to no so he could have the legislation reconsidered. Republicans have also blocked the Freedom to Vote Act 3 prior times, insisting that the federal government has no role in setting state election practices. And in the polls, NBC News says just 41% of Republicans say they're confident that their vote will be counted accurately, down from 84% in October 2020. Overall, 66% of respondents said that they're confident their votes will be counted accurately, down from 85% last year. Meanwhile, 22% of Republicans say they believe Biden was elected legitimately, while 71% of independents and 93% of Democrats say that. Overall, 58% believe that Biden is the legitimately elected president of the United States. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Amditas.